we're going to move on to our next question, which is, and I believe we start with Robert. What are you and your party prepared to do in order to improve rural broadband internet in your Simcoe?
The CRTC is ancient. It's holding us back. We need to modify it to the point of even getting rid of it. We need competition. The bandwidth that basically right now is running at about, I think, $100 to $150 per month. But then for every extra gigabyte, you have to pay another $5. This is causing families to ration out their bandwidth, and that isn't working out. Competition is the source. Maxime Bernier confesses that he is more of the libertarian perspective when it comes to him leaving the Conservative Party, because he believes in free enterprise. And he's taking the view that if we simply get the CRTC out of the way, that basically the competition will come in and they will find a way to get the bandwidths to you at lower and lower costs. The CRTC is an impediment. It is not, it creates cartels, it creates benefits to the status quo. It's hurting you. And this is the whole point of the People's Party. You've got to get rid of all of the regulation so that we can actually start saying, look, let us decide, and let's hold each government jurisdiction appropriately accountable. So that what we do simply in this case with the federal government is we say, is the CRTC really now progressive, or is it a dinosaur from the past that needs to be maybe put out to rest? And the reality is right now, with the genius of technology, is that it's slowing us down. And it's creating some of the monopolies that are basically holding you back. So the solution from the People's Party is let you decide.
Thank you. Now Matthew Lunn.
Thank you. Yes, internet is essential to us all at this stage of our lives. And, you know, I live in the rural communities. I live out in the country. I know how difficult it is to get connectivity at some points. I know how expensive it is. I deal with this directly in my life. And the answer is we have to start developing more into the infrastructure for essential services. Now, from the federal level, this has got to go, be done on a cohesive venture with the provincial governments to try to help build up the infrastructure locally. But this is something that we do need to start working on. And the cost is always going to be a question to my friend here, and it's going to be a question at all times. Again, if we start working towards taxing the big corporations and take from the rich, we can give back to the poor. We can actually get more infrastructure built if we get back to 2009 levels. And this is essential to getting the essential services that we need. So that would be my plan for getting to rural internet in this community.
Thank you very much. Jessa McLean.
So I think we can all acknowledge that high-speed broadband is an essential service, just like water and hydro in terms of today's connectivity, but we are lacking in our community because of a lack of leadership and really short-term vision in our governments who are afraid to spend that huge amount of capital to get what needs to be done. I met with the mayor of Georgina just to understand how much funds are needed, and it's astonishing. So we need a real commitment from the federal government. But because it's so essential, we should also really consider making it a public service. When do we leave such essential services to the private market? And some parties, the Conservatives included, have suggested we work with the telecoms with no real plan. And I'll tell you what happens when governments get into these private-public partnerships. We put in all the funds, and they end up with the infrastructure, and they end up making all the profits off it in the long run. So we need to look as a public entity how we are going to make that investment so that we can then in turn make the profits from it and ensure that everybody who needs the service gets it. Leaving it up to big business to decide where it is profitable, which it is not in a lot of our communities, then it will never come here. And without the federal government's liberal or conservative willing to tax the corporations and the ultra wealthy, I don't know where they're going to get the money to do all of this from.
I do. Look, if you Google for Great Canadian Gambler, I come up. And I was the professor at the Trump Taj Mahal in Atlantic City in the Rounders movie. So if anybody can show you how to win, I can. Now, if I got to reprogram the Bank of Canada's computer to give you all an interest-free account, and then put back the 60 grand Pierre helped the banks fleece from you, would you really have any trouble affording your internet?
Thank you. Scott Davidson from the Conservative Party.
Thank you. I would work with the private sector to find a solution, with government being a partner. I'm not interested in government becoming an internet provider. We don't need another public company. We have a challenge in rural Canada where the population density is low. It's currently a big disadvantage for business in these areas, particularly modern agriculture, who increasingly depend on high-speed connectivity. I know there's been many federal and provincial and even municipal pilot projects around the country to address this issue. I'd like a government to consider all options undertaken in Canada, and we have to reach out around the world to find the best solutions for Canadians and people of York Simcoe.
Thank you. Sean Tanaka from the Liberal Party.
Okay, so we don't need to reach out around the world. We can actually just look to what's happening. I agree with my NDP friend here who says that we need leadership and commitment, and that's exactly what the Liberal Party is delivering on. We have created a ministry for rural economic development that in the mandate letter, there was specific emphasis on making broadband a priority for rural communities like York Simcoe. $500 million have been put in the Connect to Innovate fund. So what we do need is a progressive voice that can go to Ottawa and work alongside the government to make sure that this rural community, to make sure York Simcoe isn't forgotten when it comes to this. We need to make sure that we have a slice of this investment right here. Because it's true, it's not just a privilege for a few, it's essential. And so that's why the Liberal Party has made it a top priority and is delivering on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will go to Matthew Lund of the Green Party. York Simcoe, and in particular Bradford, has a very strong and proud agricultural community. What do you and your party do? What will you and your party do to help farmers in this riding?
Absolutely. And my uncle's a farmer in this area. His name is John Hodgson. He's been farming in this community now for more than 40 years. Agriculture is the backbone of this riding. Farmers locally are small business owners, and the Greens are the party for small business. What we can't keep having are mega industrial agricultural conglomerates coming in and taking over at the expense of the family farms. We need to invest locally in our agriculture, and we've got to keep environmental sanctions on it. We don't want to remove all of the environmental laws that we have just so that certain parties can come in and turn the Holland Marsh into a series of condos. We need to focus and invest locally. We need to do this for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessie McLean, the NDP.
So the NDP has some really clear ideas of what we think farmers need, and if you're in the room, let me know if we're right or wrong. So we need to maintain the marketing boards, right? This is in order to protect farmers and guarantee the security of the small farm. The Conservatives has abolished these in the past and handed those interests over to foreign entities. So what's also happened is we're making really bad trade deals. When we go into trade deals, they can't be these huge, all-encompassing things. We need to focus on one sector at a time so that we can give it the attention that's needed. NAFTA, something the NDP had nothing to do